I was standing in line at the grocery store holding a pack of diapers and a bottle of almond milk when it happened. The ultrasound photo slid out of Amanda's wallet. I wasn't snooping. She'd handed it to me absent-mindedly while digging through her purse for coupons. The photo floated down like a feather from some sick angel, landing face up on the floor. I picked it up without thinking, without knowing that I was holding a live grenade that would blow my entire life apart in a matter of hours. The picture looked innocent, grainy, black and white, a curled-up little figure inside a dark void. I smiled. I felt pride swell in my chest. I had been excited about the baby, even though things between Amanda and me had been tense. She'd been short with me, cold. But I blamed it on the pregnancy, the hormones, the long shifts. I made excuses for her like a fool. Then I saw the date, printed right beneath the blob that would be our second child, February 4th. My stomach twisted. We hadn't even known she was pregnant until late March. I remember that week clearly. I come home with a dozen donuts and a stupid joke about her cravings. She'd laughed, told me I was going to be a dad again, and I'd hugged her like it was the first time. But this ultrasound was dated almost 2 months before that. And then I saw it, scribbled in ink on the back of the photo in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. For U.B. At first I thought it was a mistake, a mix-up, maybe someone else's scan, a coworker's? But no, it was hers. Her name was printed right at the top. My hands went cold. I didn't speak. I didn't even blink. I stood there like an idiot holding that thing, the cashier asking me if I wanted a bag. I walked out without buying a single item. I drove. I didn't even know where I was going. I just needed to move, to keep the wheels spinning so my brain didn't freeze in that moment. I parked in front of my old apartment, the one Amanda and I lived in before we bought the house. And that's when I called him. I called Brandon. He didn't pick up. I called again, straight to voicemail. My mind was racing, but pieces were falling into place faster than I wanted them to. The business trips that overlapped. The cryptic texts on her phone that she'd brush off with a laugh. That weekend she said she was at her sister's, and Brandon's car, that rusty Honda he always hated, was parked 3 blocks from our house. I remembered seeing it. I told myself it was just coincidence, that he was visiting someone, anyone but us. I sat there in the car for a long time, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror like I was looking at someone else. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my old laptop and dug up a backup of our home security footage, from the days when Amanda insisted on having cameras installed, for peace of mind. She made me turn them off eventually, said it creeped her out being watched. I'd forgotten I even had the files saved. I loaded the folder, not knowing what I was looking for, until I found the timestamp that matched that weekend in February. There it was.
3:47 nachts.
Amanda opening the back door, wearing my hoodie, looking around like she was in a spy movie. A minute later, Brandon walked in. My brother. The same brother who stood beside me at my wedding. The kid I protected from bullies, who cried into my chest the night Mom and Dad died. I fed him, clothed him, taught him how to drive. And there he was, stepping into my home like a ghost, like he belonged there. They didn't talk. They didn't have to. They kissed. Right in the hallway like it was normal. Like I didn't exist. Like I wasn't just a few feet away. Sleeping under the same roof, dreaming of our future while my present burned down to ashes right over my head. I turned off the laptop. My heart wasn't just broken. It was humiliated. Betrayal isn't a clean wound. It's messy, ugly. It's not just sadness. It's nausea. It's shaking. It's screaming into your steering wheel at midnight while neighbors peek through their blinds wondering if you've finally lost it. And I had lost everything. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat either. I sat on the front porch of that dead apartment complex with the laptop still open, staring at that frozen frame. Amanda's lips on Brandon's, the hallway light catching the angle of their shadows like it was mocking me. I watched it again and again, every time hoping it would change, hoping I'd see something different. But it never did. It just sat there, etched into my brain like a brand. I was wide awake, but part of me had already died. At 6:13 a.m., I drove home. The house looked the same as always. The roses she planted by the driveway were blooming. Jake's tricycle was tipped over in the yard. Amanda's car was parked at the curb like nothing was wrong. Like I wasn't walking into a war zone she built with her lies. She was in the kitchen, barefoot, sipping coffee, phone in one hand. She didn't even look up when I walked in. "You're up early," she said, just like that. Normal, like she hadn't detonated a bomb under my life. Her hair was tied up, loose strands framing her face like she'd stepped out of a magazine shoot for casual betrayal. "I know." That's all I said. She gave me a weird look, raised an eyebrow, then went back to her phone, scrolling, smiling faintly, probably texting him. I stood there for 10 seconds before I said it. "Why is Brandon's name written on the back of your ultrasound?" I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The way her face dropped told me everything. Her hands froze. She didn't move a muscle, like a deer caught in headlights. But the deer wasn't scared. No, Amanda was calculating. I watched it in real time, her brain scanning for the cleanest lie to throw at me. A delay of 3 seconds. Then she turned around slowly, like she was starring in her own little drama. "What?" She blinked, tried to sound confused. Overacted the tone. I repeated myself calmly. "Why is there a heart next to the letter B on the back of your ultrasound photo?" This time, she didn't respond right away. She walked to the sink and turned on the water. Started rinsing out her mug like I hadn't just cracked open her secret world. "You're being paranoid," she muttered. Paranoid. That word lit something in me. I felt it in my chest. A pressure. She wasn't denying it. She was gaslighting me. Flipping the script. Like I was the crazy one. So I said it. "I saw the security footage, Amanda. From February. I saw him walk into our house. I saw what you did." The mug slipped from her hands and shattered in the sink. For a second, we just stared at each other. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask why. But more than anything, I wanted her to say it. To admit it. To stop dancing around the truth like we were kids caught lying about who ate the last cookie. She finally spoke. Cold. Flat. "So? What do you want me to say?" "That I'm sorry." And then she laughed. Laughed. Not loud. Just a bitter little chuckle, like I'd walked in and asked if she'd burnt the toast. She leaned against the counter and folded her arms like I was a nuisance. "It just happened," she said. "Things got complicated. You've been emotionally absent for years, Tyler. You think everything's fine just because you show up with groceries and play dad on the weekends." That hit harder than the footage. Harder than the ultrasound. Because it wasn't just betrayal, it was blame. She was rewriting history to justify what she did. "And you know what?" she added. "He makes me feel something. You haven't in a long time." I couldn't speak. My throat tightened like I was choking on air. I took a step back, felt the wall behind me, and slid down until I was sitting on the floor. She didn't come over. She didn't comfort me. She stood there, arms crossed, pregnant with his child, and looked at me like I was nothing. I don't know how long we sat there like that. Me on the floor, her towering over the ruins of our life like she was proud of what she built. Then she said something I'll never forget. "We were going to tell you after the baby came. We didn't want to stress you out before. They had a plan. A plan that I was never a part of." And she said it like she was being considerate that I don't remember walking out of the house. But I remember where I ended up. Sitting in the playground near Jake's preschool. Alone on a swing made for 5-year-olds. The chains creaking like they knew the weight they were holding wasn't meant to be there. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from Brandon. One word. "Sorry." That was it. Not a call. Not a full sentence. Just that gutless little word on a screen. The same guy who used to beg me to stay up late so we could play video games when he was 13. The same kid who cried on my shoulder after every breakup in high school. The brother I taught how to shave. I didn't reply. I sat there thinking about Jake. About how the same blood ran in all our veins now, twisted and poisoned. About how the child Amanda was carrying, the one I'd already imagined holding, feeding, watching cartoons with, wasn't mine. And how they planned to run off with Jake too once she gave birth. She'd said that to my face like it was logistics. Not even an apology. Just cold, calculated timing. The thought kept replaying in my head. They were going to take my son. I went back to the house around 5 p.m. Amanda was in Jake's room reading to him. Her voice was soft, soothing. The same one she used to use with me on the nights I couldn't sleep. It sounded like a stranger's now. She came out after he fell asleep, pulled the door shut behind her, and gave me a look like we were business partners having a difficult meeting. "I told Brandon not to come around anymore," she said, brushing hair from her face. This is getting out of hand. Getting out of hand? She was talking about it like it was a messy car lease, not a full-blown collapse of trust, not the kind of betrayal you don't come back from. I stared at her for a long time, and in that silence, I finally asked the one question I hadn't been able to until then. When did it start? She didn't flinch. 3 years ago. 3 years. Jake was 2 when she started sneaking around with him. That means all those family holidays, birthdays, the late-night fights about money, parenting, work schedules. All of it happened while she was playing 2 lives. And not once did she slip. Not once did I catch her. And the worst part? I think she was proud of that. Why him? I asked quieter now. She shrugged. You treat everyone like a project, Tyler. Like they're broken and you're the hero. Brandon didn't need fixing. He just needed someone to see him. The way she said that made me feel physically sick. Like this was my fault, for being the older brother, for being supportive, for trusting both of them too much. Like they'd bonded over how inconvenient I'd become. I asked her if she loved him. She didn't answer. That silence was louder than any yes. Then she walked away. Not upstairs to cry. Not to beg. Just to the laundry room, humming under her breath, folding tiny shirts that might not even belong to my child anymore. That's when something in me shut off. Like a switch. The grief was still there, yes, but behind it came this new thing, this clean, ice-cold clarity. I wasn't going to beg her. I wasn't going to fight for someone who looked me in the face and told me they were planning to erase me. So I started making moves. I texted a friend who worked at a law firm downtown. Told him I needed a name. Told him I needed it today. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to throw things. I was going to take everything they thought they'd stolen and rip it right out from under them. The lawyer's name was Diane. She was sharp, fast-talking, and didn't blink when I told her everything. I laid it all out. The affair, the ultrasound, the footage, the betrayal by my own brother. She listened without interrupting, taking notes like she was mapping a war. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said something that hit like a bullet. We need to move first. That night, while Amanda was asleep, or pretending to be, I sat in the garage and scanned documents. Birth certificates, tax returns, mortgage papers, anything that proved Jake was mine. I found one of his old drawings tucked into a folder. A stick figure family. Me, him, Amanda. All smiling. The kind of innocent art you tape to the fridge and forget about. Felt like I was preparing to bury that family. The next morning, I went to the county clerk's office and filed for emergency custody. Diane had me include everything, not just the infidelity, but the plan to take Jake and run once the baby was born. It's premeditated, she said. It's not about cheating. It's about removing a father from his child's life without consent. While that was being processed, I picked Jake up from school early and took him to the zoo. Just him and me. He held my hand the whole time, told me a story about a dragon with a peanut allergy. I laughed harder than I had in weeks, but behind that laugh was panic. Because I didn't know if I'd get to keep these moments. When we got home, Amanda was waiting on the porch. She had that same icy expression. Arms crossed, lips tight. Where were you? She asked. I told her I'd taken him out. No lies. I wasn't playing her game. You don't get to make decisions like that without me, she snapped. I looked her dead in the eye and said, You gave that right away 3 years ago. Something cracked in her then. Her confidence slipped. Maybe she didn't expect me to fight back. Maybe she thought I'd spiral, collapse, beg. But I was calm. I had papers in motion. I had proof. All she had were secrets and a due date. She started pacing, rambling about how I was overreacting, how we could still figure something out. I asked her what there was to figure out. If she wanted a life with Brandon, she could have it, but not with my son. That's when she played her card. You don't even know if Jake's yours. I felt the world tilt. It was the one thing I hadn't questioned. Not once. Jake has my eyes, my stubbornness, my laugh. But when she said it, when she dropped it like a nuclear bomb, it shattered something in me that hadn't even healed yet. You're lying, I said, more to myself than to her. She didn't answer. She just went inside and slammed the door behind her. I stood there frozen, wind pushing against me like the world itself was rejecting the thought. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. Everything had been torn apart, and now even Jake, the one pure thing in all this, was suddenly wrapped in doubt. The next morning, I swabbed Jake's cheek while he was watching cartoons. He didn't notice. He was too busy laughing at some ridiculous blue dog on TV. I mailed the test that afternoon. The waiting nearly broke me. 3 days passed, each one longer than the last. Every minute stretched like it was daring me to snap. Amanda barely spoke. She floated through the house like a ghost, only interacting with Jake. And even that was strange to watch now, tainted. I kept thinking, is she loving him, or just preparing to take him? She stopped sleeping in our bed, set up a mattress in the guest room, said it was for the baby's comfort. I didn't argue. The distance helped, gave me space to think, to plan. I stopped asking questions. Every answer from her was a knife. Meanwhile, Diane was moving fast. She filed motions, pulled Amanda's phone records, even got statements from 2 of Amanda's coworkers who confirmed that she'd brought Brandon to prenatal appointments and introduced him as a close family friend. One even told Diane that Amanda had referred to Brandon as the baby's real dad in a private conversation. That tipped the scale. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was psychological warfare. And now it was legal. On the 4th night, Amanda tried to talk to me. She came into the living room while I was watching Jake build a blanket fort and stood there with her hands on her stomach like she was trying to look maternal. "I know you're hurt," she said. I didn't respond. "I didn't mean for this to happen. You have to believe that." Still nothing. She knelt next to the couch, placing herself between me and the screen, her voice soft, calculated. "I loved you, Tyler. I did. But things change. People change. Maybe you just didn't see it." That word again. Maybe. I turned my face slowly toward her and said, "You had a child with my brother. You lied to me for years. You planned to kidnap our son and vanish. This isn't change. This is a betrayal you rehearsed." She stood up fast, defensive now. "You're not the only one in this house with feelings, Tyler. I've been miserable for years. You always put work first. You treated Brandon like a project, like you owned him. Maybe he just needed to feel human again." That was the moment I realized she didn't regret any of it. Not 1 second. She wasn't sorry. She was angry that I'd found out. That night, I started recording. I placed an audio recorder in the living room. I didn't trust her anymore. I didn't know what she'd say next, to me, to Jake, and I needed everything documented. Every word, every slip. Then the results came. I was sitting in the car outside the courthouse waiting to sign an emergency motion for temporary custody when the email hit my inbox. My hands hovered over the screen. I don't know what I was expecting. Hope? Closure? Destruction? I opened it. Probability of paternity. 99.997%. Jake was mine. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for 4 days. My son, the only thing in this world that still made sense, was mine. And that truth gave me just enough oxygen to keep going. I walked into the courthouse, signed the papers, and walked out with a hearing date. 1 week from then. Amanda would be served by the weekend. She didn't know it yet, but the countdown had started. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. But I did pick Jake up from school that day and told him we were going for ice cream. We sat in the back of my truck, legs swinging off the tailgate, chocolate dripping onto the pavement. And I promised him, right there under a wide blue sky, that nobody was ever going to take him away from me. Amanda was served the following Saturday morning. I was in the kitchen, feeding Jake cereal, when the knock came. She opened the door in her robe, her hair a mess, expecting a package or a neighbor. Instead, a process server handed her a thick envelope and walked away without a word. She stood there in the doorway, reading the first page, her face slowly collapsing in on itself. Jake was giggling at a cartoon on the tablet. He had no idea what was happening 2 rooms away. She didn't say a word. Not when she finished reading. Not when she turned around. Not even when she passed me in the hallway, clutching the documents like they might catch fire. It wasn't until an hour later that she came out, red-eyed but composed, holding the custody notice in one hand and her phone in the other. "You want to go to war with me?" she asked. Calm, controlled, but I could see it in her eyes. She was spiraling. "No," I said. "I want my son." She laughed again. That same small, bitter laugh that haunted every memory now. "He's not a trophy, Tyler. You don't get to win him." I stepped closer. "You were going to steal him from me. Don't lecture me about morality." She pointed at her belly. I'm pregnant, and you're dragging me through court like I'm some criminal. You think any judge will side with a man who's attacking the mother of his child in the 3rd trimester? I didn't flinch. The baby isn't mine, and I have recordings now of what you said. About taking Jake, about your plan with Brandon. You've lost the right to call this a family. That got to her. She froze. A flicker of something. Maybe fear, maybe guilt. Passed across her face, and for a second, she looked like the woman I used to know. The woman who once held Jake in her arms and cried because she was scared she'd never be a good enough mom. But it vanished just as quickly. I'll fight you, she said. And I'll win. I didn't reply. I let her think whatever she needed to, because it was already too late for threats. That night, Brandon showed up. I don't know if she called him or if he sensed the fire from wherever he'd crawled into. But there he was, standing on my porch, hands stuffed in the pockets of a coat I bought him 2 Christmases ago. He looked smaller than I remembered. Ashamed. But not enough. I opened the door and stared at him. He looked at me like a stranger, like he wasn't sure if he should speak. I came to talk, he said.
No, Irraplia.
You came to explain, and I don't want it. He held up his hands, placating. I know I messed up, all right? I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But Amanda's pregnant, and she's scared, and I didn't know she was planning all that. She was planning it with you. I cut in. Don't pretend you were just some spectator. You were the plan. He swallowed, looked at the floor. I never meant to hurt you. That line. That empty, useless, exhausted line. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to scream in his face that everything I'd built, every inch of the life I'd poured blood into, was now a battlefield because he couldn't keep his hands off what wasn't his. But instead I said, you need to leave, and you don't come near Jake. Ever. His lips parted like he was going to protest, but then he looked in my eyes, really looked, and saw the part of me that wasn't bending anymore. He left. Amanda didn't even come outside. Later that night, after Jake had gone to sleep, I started packing a bag. Not mine, his, just the essentials. A few toys, clothes, his favorite nightlight. The court hadn't ruled yet, but I knew Amanda. I knew she was capable of one last desperate move, and I wasn't going to let her take him while the system dragged its feet. The next morning, I drove him to my sister's place 2 counties over. Someone I trusted, someone Amanda had no ties to. She agreed to watch him until the hearing, just in case. When Amanda found out he wasn't in the house anymore, she went ballistic, screaming, slamming doors, threatening to call the police. I told her to go ahead. I had documentation. I had Diane. I had the truth. And for the first time in weeks, I had control. Amanda did call the police. 2 officers showed up at the door that afternoon. Calm, professional, already aware there was a custody petition in process. She tried to paint it as kidnapping, claimed I'd taken Jake without her consent, that I was emotionally unstable, that I'd snapped. But I had everything ready, printed, labeled, signed by a judge. The emergency custody order glared up at them like a bulletproof vest. One of the officers asked if she was aware of the court filing. She blinked like a deer in headlights, still wrapped in her own delusion that she could control the story. When I handed them the custody documents and mentioned my lawyer's name, they glanced at each other and stepped back. You're well within your rights, sir. Amanda stood there, seething. The law wasn't bending for her this time. Her story wasn't winning. When they left, she didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. She just sat at the dining table, hands wrapped around a cup of tea she never drank, staring at nothing. It should have made me feel triumphant. But instead, it was just empty, a silence with teeth. The next evening, Brandon came back. He didn't knock this time. He stormed in like he still had a place here, his voice already raised. What the hell are you doing? You're hiding Jake now. Amanda came down the stairs like she was waiting for it, like they'd rehearsed this scene in some twisted little soap opera. I told you this was going to happen, she snapped at me. You pushed him to this. I didn't respond. I didn't even look at her. I looked at him. You don't speak his name again, I said. You don't come into this house. You don't breathe near my family. Brandon's jaw clenched. He's my family too. Those words, that tone, that shameless, delusional entitlement. I felt something inside me shift. Not rage this time, but something colder.
Permanent.
You gave that up the second you crawled into my bed through her lies, I said. Amanda stepped between us. We didn't mean for it to happen, all right? We connected. We didn't plan it like this. Oh no. I pulled out my phone, opened the audio file, hit play. Her voice filled the room. We were going to tell you after the baby came. We didn't want to stress you out before. Brandon went pale. Amanda's face went slack. You planned to take my son and disappear, I said, my voice low. You discussed it while he was sleeping under the same roof. You weren't just unfaithful. You were plotting. Amanda tried to reach for the phone. I stepped back. You think the court's going to take your side? I continued. After this? After what I've documented? Brandon turned to her, betrayed. You recorded this? Her expression cracked. A moment of fear. Not for me. For herself. You're both finished, I said. And the baby? Raise it together. I don't care. Just know this. I will bury you in court before I ever let you touch Jake again. Then I turned my back and walked out. I drove for hours that night. Not aimlessly. With purpose. I needed to see Jake, to hold him. I needed something real. Something untouched by their lies. He was already asleep when I got to my sister's house. Curled up in a blanket on the couch. Cartoons still flickering on the TV. I sat beside him, watched his chest rise and fall. My boy. My blood. And for the first time since this hell started, I let myself cry. Quietly. The kind of cry that doesn't shake your body. It empties it. I wasn't just mourning a marriage. I was mourning the life I thought I had. But I'd started building something new. And I wasn't going to stop until it was fireproof. The custody hearing was set for Monday. The night before, I barely slept. I lay on my sister's couch, staring at the ceiling, my mind running 1,000 miles an hour. Not with fear, but with calculation. I'd spent the last week turning over every detail, every piece of evidence, every sick conversation Amanda and Brandon thought they'd buried. The lies weren't just exposed now, they were documented, time-stamped, admissible. That morning, I wore a black button-down and gray slacks. Diane met me outside the courthouse with her usual calm, but her eyes carried the weight of this one. We both knew this wasn't going to be a routine case. This wasn't about who had more parenting time. This was war, and I had come armed. Amanda arrived late, of course. She walked in alone.
No, Brandon.
Probably advised by her attorney to keep the father of her unborn child as far away from the courtroom as possible. She looked polished, fake calm, a soft maternity dress. No trace of the chaos behind her. Her lawyer was younger, inexperienced. I could see it the second he fumbled with the papers in his briefcase. The judge was a tall, tired-looking woman who'd seen it all. She didn't smile once, didn't ask for small talk, just looked through her glasses and said, "Mr. Graves, please begin." Diane opened with the facts. Straight, cold, brutal. 7 years of marriage. A 5-year-old child. An extramarital affair spanning 3 years, with the husband's brother. A second pregnancy. Secret plans to relocate with both children, without the father's knowledge or consent. And then, the final nail, a recording in which Amanda admitted to these plans. The judge listened in silence as Diane played the audio. The courtroom was quiet except for Amanda's voice. So casual, so calculated. When the clip ended, Amanda's lawyer didn't speak for a solid 30 seconds. Then he tried. He went for emotional manipulation. Amanda was under stress. She feared for her mental well-being. Tyler had been cold and distant in the marriage. No real evidence. Just vague emotional paint. That's when Diane dropped the DNA results. Confirmed paternity. Jake was mine, legally and biologically. No room for doubt, no leverage for Amanda. Then Amanda herself took the stand. She tried to cry, tried to act broken, spoke about confusion, loneliness, the pressure of motherhood. But the tears never came. The judge watched her like a hawk. And then she asked the question that changed everything. Why did you not inform Mr. Graves of your intent to leave with the child? Amanda froze. I didn't know how, she said. Wrong answer. The judge leaned forward. Ms. Graves, this isn't about emotional hardship. This is about premeditated concealment of a parental relocation. This court does not tolerate that. Amanda's hands trembled. She glanced at me, but I didn't look away. I wanted her to see exactly what she'd created. When I took the stand, I didn't get dramatic. I just told the truth. I talked about raising Brandon like a son, about loving Amanda through every difficult chapter, about finding that ultrasound and watching everything I loved collapse in slow motion. And I ended with this: I'm not asking for revenge. I'm asking for protection for my son. From two people who saw him as a pawn in a game they thought they could win. I will never let them use him like that again. The hearing ended just before noon. The judge called for a recess and said her ruling would be issued within 24 hours. But I already knew. I saw it in her face. She saw it all: the betrayal, the manipulation, the danger of letting Jake be raised around that chaos. Amanda didn't look at me as she left the courtroom. Her lawyer kept his eyes down. I stood in the parking lot after, the sun beating down on my back, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I didn't feel like I was falling anymore. I felt like I was rising. The ruling came in the next morning. I was sitting at the breakfast table at my sister's place, pouring cereal for Jake, when my phone buzzed. Subject: Custody Order Graves versus Graves. I opened the email and read every word like it might disappear if I blinked. Sole physical and legal custody awarded to Tyler Graves. Supervised visitation granted to Amanda Graves pending psychological evaluation and postnatal stability assessment. It was over. I dropped the phone on the table, sat down in front of Jake, and just stared at him. He smiled, clueless to the legal war that had raged over his future. He was spooning cereal into his mouth, spilling milk down his chin, humming a tune I didn't recognize. This little boy, my son, had no idea that two people he trusted had tried to erase his father from the picture. And he didn't need to know. Not yet. Not until he was old enough to understand that sometimes the people closest to you can become strangers in an instant. Amanda didn't call. Not that day. Not the next. Diane said her lawyer probably advised her to stay silent, especially after the judge's final note in the ruling. A blistering paragraph about deliberate, sustained deception, and concerning disregard for ethical co-parenting standards. That wasn't a ruling. That was a public reprimand. And it carried weight. Brandon? He reached out. A text this time. Longer than his one-word apology. He wrote, "I know you hate me. I deserve it. I just wanted to say I never wanted Jake to get hurt. I didn't think it would go this far. I know that's not enough, but I needed to say it. I read it once and deleted it." He didn't need a response. There wasn't one that wouldn't reduce me to something I refused to become. He had taken enough from me. The only thing left was silence. A week passed. Amanda requested her first supervised visit. I agreed. I didn't want Jake to grow up feeling like one parent vanished, even if she'd earned it. The visit was arranged at a neutral location, under the supervision of a court-assigned counselor. She showed up late. Jake ran to her. He still loved her, of course. He should. He's 5. He doesn't know about betrayal yet. I sat in the corner of the room, watching her hug him like she hadn't nearly destroyed his entire world. She didn't look at me. Her eyes were tired, dimmed, but not humbled. She still believed she was the victim. During that visit, Jake asked her something that hit like a truck. "Why don't you and Daddy live together anymore?" Amanda smiled and brushed his hair back. "Because sometimes grown-ups forget how to be kind to each other." Pretty answer. A lie, but pretty. I said nothing. Let her have that. He'd learn the truth one day in his own time. But for now, he needed peace more than he needed clarity. After the visit, as I was buckling Jake into his booster seat, Amanda walked up to me. Quiet, hesitant. No storm in her voice. "I'm going to move," she said. "After the baby's born." I nodded. Probably smart. She looked down at her belly, then at me. "He's due next month. I'm naming him Eli." I didn't respond. Then, after a pause, she whispered, "Do you think I'm evil?" I looked at her. For a long time. Not angry. Not even bitter anymore. Just tired. "I think you made choices. And now you live with them. Same as the rest of us." She nodded. Turned. Walked away. I watched her get in her car. Drive off without looking back. And just like that, the story she tried to write, the one where she and my brother start fresh with my son and a stolen dream, came to its end. That it's been 5 months. Eli was born in early October. I got a text from Amanda's sister. Not Amanda herself. No photo. No birth weight. Just a one-line message. He's here. I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. That chapter was over. The pages had been burned, the ashes scattered. There was nothing left there for me, no curiosity, no rage, just absence. And I was fine with that. Amanda moved 2 towns over. She still sees Jake once every few weeks under supervised conditions, though she's been late to more than half of the visits. The court counselor keeps a detailed log. I don't say anything. I don't need to. She's building her own case against herself. Jake's adjusted better than I expected. I think kids are more resilient than we give them credit for, or maybe I've just learned how to give him enough of the world that he doesn't notice what he lost. We read together every night. He likes dinosaurs now and outer space. He wants to be an astronaut, then a chef, then a superhero. I tell him he can be all 3. As for me,
I'm okay.
not great, not healed, but okay. Healing isn't a straight line. Some days I feel strong, like I've rebuilt the foundation of my life from stone. Other days I see a family of 4 at the park and wonder if there's a version of me out there, in some alternate timeline, who never picked up that ultrasound photo in the grocery store. But I don't envy him. That version of me lived in a lie. I'd rather live in pain than fiction. I've reconnected with old friends, started going to therapy. I even signed up for a woodworking class. Something about shaping broken pieces into something beautiful feels right. And Brandon? Gone. Completely.
No texts.
No calls. I think even he knew there was no coming back from this. I raised him like a son, and he betrayed me like a stranger. I've accepted that. Forgiveness is optional. Distance is not. So what did I learn? I learned that trust isn't a contract. It's a living thing. Fragile, precious. Easy to lose, hard to rebuild. I learned that love can blind you, bury you, and still not be real. I learned that people don't always cheat because they're unhappy. Sometimes they cheat because they're selfish and empty and looking for validation in the arms of someone who doesn't challenge them. But most of all, I learned how strong I can be when I have to be. I walked through fire, carrying a 5-year-old on my back, and came out burned but breathing. If you're reading this, and you're in the middle of your own wreckage, maybe you just found the photo, the text, the phone number, the lie. Let me say this, it will hurt, it will gut you, but you will survive. Because when everything you thought was real turns out to be a lie, the only thing left is what you decide to build next. And that can be something stronger than anything they ever tried to take from you.